Hi, Lee here. So my last video I basically prepped the neck and I've done some cutting. Off camera I've actually now cut the basic shape of the neck out as well, and I've also cut the headstock down a bit just to make it a bit easier when I start to shape everything later. So for this video I'm going to glue the fretboard to the neck, and then I'm going to finish shaping it and start to smooth it out, and then after that I'll probably glue the wings of the body on there. So let's get started. I've already sanded down this to make it level. I've shown you before, but just again, I've got a straight edge and I've put some sandpaper on there, and this is perfect for making sure everything is level. So I've already done that. It's nice and smooth and ready for gluing. Now I'm just using like wood glue, Gorilla Glue this is, but I've used different glues. So all I need to do now is line this up. Remember, the center line is so important. So I've got the center line visible on there. I'm going to put some glue down and then I'm going to clamp it all together. A couple of things to point out. Obviously, first of all, we need to put the truss rod in. So if I line that up and put that in there like so. The next thing to remember is you just want to tape over the hole so you don't get loads of glue in there when you spread the glue out. So if I just put this on here just to try and cover up that gap, and then we peel that off before we actually glue it. So let's just do that. Just need a bit more. So that's just to stop lots of glue going down the edge, because the last thing you want to do once that truss rod is in is if there's any glue in there and it glues up the truss rod, it's never going to work. So if you do that, you can then put glue around the edges, you can spread it liberally, and then just before you put the fretboard on, you can just peel the tape off. At least that's what I do. Clamp that down, that's perfectly centered now. So I just need to leave that overnight to dry properly, and then in the morning I'll come back and I'll start to shape everything properly. So as you can see, the fretboard is now glued to the neck. Also I started to do a bit more smoothing out of the body on the band sander. Having these power tools has saved me a lot of time, so it's really useful to have if you can afford to get them. So the next step are, before I glue the body to the neck, I'm actually going to finish the neck. So I'm going to do a lot of sanding now. I'm going to look for a headstock design and start cutting that shape out. I'm going to put the frets on as well and make sure everything's smooth and ready, and get the neck into almost the correct shape just for final sanding. And then and only then will I think about gluing the wings on. So let's just get started with all of the sanding and putting the frets on. I've done a lot of sanding on the machine now, and it's starting to look really good. So I'm starting to put the curve in there so you can get your hand to the 24th fret. I'm just going to finish hand sanding as best I can. The neck's still a little bit thicker than I would like, although it's pretty good so far. So at the 12th fret it's about 22 or 23 mil. Ideally I wouldn't want that to be down to about 21. But of course I still have to finish sanding it with a much finer sandpaper near the end before I polish. So I'm just going to carry on with the sanding. I've just got my sanding block in this, it's just band sander paper, because that's the roughest gauge I had. So I'm going to crack on with the sanding and catch up with you in a minute when I start putting the frets in. So the next job before I do anything else is I'm going to start putting the frets in. As you can see, as a test, I've already put one fret in. So for this I'm going to need my rubber mallet, clippers to snip the end off the frets, and of course the fret wire. So this is jumbo fret wire. I quite like thick frets, that's just my preference. So let's get started. So I don't know if there's a proper technique for this, but all I do is I just get the fret wire. So you can see here, I basically just take a piece, make sure it's long enough, and snip it off. I always leave a bit of overhang because what I've found is when you clip the fret wire, the little tang, I think it's called a tang, bends in and then you can't hammer it into the fret. So leave yourself enough sort of overhang and then you can snip it off afterwards. To tidy the edges, I've actually got a Dremel, so I will sand down the end of all the frets before I do a final sanding on the edge. So let's see if we can do this now.